Gruesome mental health treatments from history. From spinning torture to skull drilling, brace for a chilling ride. In the 18th to 20th centuries, asylums were pure nightmares. Doctors thought they were curing patients, but they were torturing them. Treatments, like spinning chairs, cages, or skull drilling were called science, but they were just cruelty in disguise. Mentally ill patients were guinea pigs, enduring horrific experiments because docs believed pain could fix minds. No rules, no oversight, just wild, sadistic creativity. Get ready for a chilling dive into methods that'll make you cringe, from water torture to electric shocks, in a journey through history's darkest science. Spinning therapy was a nightmare in 18th to 19th century USA and Europe. Patients were strapped to a chair, spun at speeds from a few to 100 RPM. Picture being whirled until you puke or pass out. Docs thought dizziness and nausea would calm the mind, as if torture was a mental health cure. For patients, it was hell. For the staff cranking the chair, well, at least they got a free arm workout. Some lucky patients fainted, waking up refreshed, in a survive-the-nightmare way. This method shows how batshit crazy science was back then, and we're just getting started. Moral therapy sounds chill, but in 18th to 19th century asylums across the USA and Europe, it was a total nightmare. Patients got punished for breaking rules they couldn't follow, forgetting them or being unable to learn from mistakes. The result? Brutal beatings, starvation in cells, restraints, cold water dunks, even that spinning chair torture. Staff could get creative with punishments, no oversight needed. Imagine getting slammed endlessly just because your brain doesn't work their way. Insane. This therapy didn't cure, it just piled on suffering, exposing the cruelty of so-called science back then. Hydrotherapy from the 18th to 20th centuries in the USA and Europe was next-level cruel. First up, the surprise bath. Patients walked on a wooden bridge, then bam, a trapdoor dropped them into freezing water, like a horror movie. Docs thought the shock would stabilize minds. Next, dunking. Patients were locked in cages, slowly submerged in icy water until near hypothermia, seen as a sign it was working. Then, wet towel wraps, ice-cold sheets binding patients for hours. And long baths? Submerged for days, only heads above water, strapped in so they didn't enjoy it. Docs believed cold water relaxed minds, eased stress. Nah, it just terrified patients, proving how insanely wrong science was back then. Solitary confinement in 18th to 19th century USA and Europe was pure cruelty. Patients were locked in cells, sometimes for days, clueless about what was happening. Many, gripped by mental illness, slammed into walls to escape, injuring themselves badly. Later, straitjackets were used before locking them up, but that didn't stop self-harm. Asylums upgraded to padded cells to cut injuries, but it just meant longer confinement. Imagine being trapped in fear, no way out, just four walls. This method didn't cure, it drove patients crazier, exposing the savagery of so-called science back then. The tranquilizer chair in 18th to 19th century USA was a legit nightmare. Patients were strapped, hands, feet, chest, head, unable to move. A bucket caught their waist and a small box covered their head, letting them only see straight ahead. Left alone for hours, sometimes days. Dr. Benjamin Rush thought stopping movement would redirect blood to the brain, curing insanity. Sounds nuts, right? I got a taste of this as a kid, strapped in a dentist's chair, screaming for help, only freed after brushing. But for patients, this was hell, not dentistry. This method just bred fear and pain, curing nothing. Confinement cages in 19th to 20th century USA and Europe were peak cruelty. Patients were locked in wooden or metal cages, sometimes for weeks, supposedly to think about their behavior. But mentally ill folks couldn't do that. They just went madder in those cramped spaces. Some cages allowed a few steps, others pinned you so tight you couldn't budge. The crazier you were, the longer you stayed locked up. Sick stuff. This didn't heal. It drove patients to despair, proof of how brutally wrong science was back then. Bloodletting, from ancient times to the 20th century in the USA and Europe, was straight-up medical horror. Patients were cut to drain bad blood they thought caused insanity. In asylums, the crazier you were, the more they bled you, sometimes till you looked like a shriveled mummy. Docs swore it cured madness, but it just brought infections, collapse, and death. No improvement. They'd drain more, like blood was the only problem. Total dumbass move. For centuries, this was hailed as science, but it was just a gory torture show. It screams how savage old medicine was, giving you goosebumps at the stupidity. Fever therapy in 20th century USA and Europe was a deadly gamble. Patients were injected with malaria to spark high fevers, throwing them into a weeks-long survival game. If they somehow pulled through, they got another dose, repeated 8 to 12 times over 6 months. As bodies piled up, docs didn't quit, they injected malaria-infected blood straight into brains. Yup, brains. About 15% of patients died from this experiment. They thought high fevers would burn out mental illness, like curing a cold. Total madness. It left a trail of corpses and suffering, proving this science was just reckless cruelty. This method's a stain on medical history, making you recoil at their bats-hip boldness. Insulin shock therapy, from the 1920s to 1950s in the USA, Canada, UK, China, Korea, was a straight-up nightmare. Patients got massive insulin doses, triggering hypoglycemia and comas. Many convulsed so hard they dislocated joints or snapped bones. After hours, they'd wake, only to get dosed again the next day. This went on for months, some endured over 2 years. Scarier still, insulin caused obesity from glycogen buildup. Some died in comas or suffered severe brain damage. Docs called brain damage success since patients stopped talking to themselves. Sick, right? They thought comas could cure psychosis, but it just brought pain and ruin. This method's proof of how brutally dumb medicine was back then. Electroshock therapy, massive worldwide in the 19th to 20th centuries, was straight-up torture. In the 1930s, Italian docs Ugo Cerletti and Lucio Bini saw pigs calm down post-shock and thought, humans next. Patients were strapped to tables, a rubber bit stuffed in their mouths to save their tongues, then electrodes clamped on their heads. Flip the switch, zap. They'd convulse hard for minutes. The real horror? Many were wide awake, feeling every volt. This went down daily, sometimes multiple zaps a day, for months. Patients played nice out of fear, but survivors often got slammed with heavy PTSD, never the same. Docs dubbed it success since patients quit acting up. Savage. This method lays bare the cruel, dumb science of the past. Trephination, from ancient times to the 19th century, was pure horror. Patients, willing or forced, were strapped to chairs, then docs drilled holes in their skulls, from pencil size to tennis ball big. They thought it released pressure or demons from the skull, curing headaches and mental illness. By the 19th century, asylums used it to exorcise evil spirits from brains. Tools. Drills, saws, even hammers. Holes were punched all over skulls, sometimes in weird shapes for show. Result? Infections, death, and insane pain. Pre-Ouija board, this was their demon talk, total nonsense. This method screams how brutal and superstitious ancient medicine was, giving you chills. Lobotomies, launched in 1935 by Portuguese doc Antonio Moniz, were the peak of medical horror. He drilled skulls, injected alcohol to trash brain tissue, altering patients' behavior, labeled a win. Then he used a leucotome to hack out frontal lobes, leaving folks unable to move arms, legs, or faces. But the real maniac was Walter Freeman in the USA, cranking out over 4,000 lobotomies from 1936 to 1967. He'd shove an ice pick through eye sockets, hammer it to scramble brains, no precision needed. Many died on the spot or lived as hollow shells, unable to function solo. Moniz snagged a Nobel in 1949, nuts. Freeman's hype had people paying for this torture. Over 100,000 cases worldwide left a trail of tragedy. This is the ugliest stain on medical history. From spinning chairs to skull drills, these treatments are medicine's dark stains. Good thing we've moved on, but damn, that was grim. Which was the creepiest? Drop a comment. Smash that like, subscribe for more spooky stuff. Catch you in the next vid, fam.